New expansion, new balanced druid rework. A tale as old as time. Basically, since the dawn of time, Blizzard has liked to rework balanced druid in some capacity every single expansion, and this expansion is no exception. I would say the extent of these reworks is a lot less extensive than they have been in the past, but let's still talk about all the changes that we've seen to balanced druid and druid in general coming into the War Within. First and foremost, I think we can talk about the druid talent tree. And I would recommend going and looking at this article over at Wowhead. I'm going to link it down in the description. Basically, they transcribed all of the talents and put in a lot of effort to make sure that it was available for you guys to be able to look at. So for new abilities, we have something called Fluid Form, which is, I would describe it as a Resto Druid talent. It's at the bottom right of the tree. Basically, your Shred and Rake can now be used in any form and shift you into cat form. Mangle can be used in any form. It now shifts you into bear form. Wrath and Starfire will shift you into Moonkin form if known. I don't know. Resto Druid basically can't get Moonkin form anymore. Moonkin form is now just locked behind balanced Druid specialization in general, and this is Fluid form right here. This is the bottom right-hand portion of the tree. Balance will probably never use this. Oak Skin, Survival Instincts, and Bark Skin now reduce damage taken by an additional 10%. Great. I think that this is OP. There actually is a way that you can get to Oak Skin without dropping Nature's Vigil. It does involve dropping improved Stamp Roar or Forest Walk, which is totally fine. Then it also involves dropping Remove Corruption and Rejuve. I think that this is probably the most standard talent option that we're going to be looking at. On top of that, we have Ursoc's Spirit, which stamina in bear form is increased by 10%. Not the most useful talent point, all things considered, but where it is positioned in the tree means that it's pretty easy to get to. And so you're going to be able to get this pretty often. Very good at Mythic Plus. Bonus stamina for bear form for Mythic Plus is awesome, pretty much all times. Instincts of the Claw, which is Shred, Brutal Slash, Swipe, Rake, Mangle, and Thrash. Damage is now increased. This is a primarily feral druid talent. It's right here. We don't really care about that as balance players. There's also Lore of the Grove, which is Moonfire and Sunfire damage increased by 10%. Rejuvenation and Wild Growth healing has been increased by 5%. And then there's Starlight Conduit, which is Wrath, Star Surge, and Starfire damage increased by 5%. Star Surge cooldown is reduced by 4%, and then Spana cost is reduced by 50%. Obviously, that doesn't affect us at all. That is more of a resto thing. That part doesn't even show up whenever you're spec'd into balance form. And so those are the major changes to the balance, or to the Druid tree in general. As you can clearly tell, there's somehow even more dead-end nodes than before that are branch nodes that are still mandatory. I've found it not that easy to actually be able to use this new Druid tree, just as difficult as it has been in the past. Now it is easier to get things such as Remove Corruption. You're not paying a massive point tax to take that, but if you still want it, it still is pretty expensive because you have to, take Rejuve and stuff like that. We now have a really hard time of getting to Endcap Roar. I can't really think of a way that we are able to get to that, especially if you're prioritizing full survivability. Maybe you give up something like Matted Fur or Ursine Vigor to be able to get to Incapacitating Roar, and our talent setup looks something like this. I think this is like maybe the most likely situation. Ursine Vigor, 15% stamina isn't always like super impactful, but whenever it is, it's pretty good. Matted Fur, depending on the spot that it's used in, can also be pretty good. So if you want to get to Incapacitating Roar, you're definitely going to be dropping some survivability. I don't think that I'm not in love with the tree because it's still a kind of a weird situation where if you want to get Remove Corruption, you're giving up other stuff, which isn't always the case for other specializations. Other classes and other specs actually don't give up really anything whenever they're talenting into their survivability or talenting into their utility. But for balance in general, I've seen worse. It's definitely improving. I think that the tree is in general getting a lot better. There's still going to be weird spots whenever you want Hibernation and Remove Corruption together. You're going to start giving up a significant amount again because we still are locked in Lycara's Teachings, which is a 2.0. We're still locked in Nurturing Instinct and whatnot. But in general, it definitely has improved. Another thing that I do want to hammer, though, is that I think that this tree, the Druid tree in general, did fix a lot of the survivability issues that Balance has been having in the past, where Oakskin being able to increase your DR from Barkskin by an additional 10%, Ursoc Spirit, Ursine Vigor, all incredibly solid options for being able to just kind of like increase your survivability. On top of that, Thick Hide also did get a little bit of a change. It's now a bit less passive DR, but like in general, being able to get 10% more DR whenever you press your Barkskin, that's pretty good. I think that we didn't have something that was strong versus medium strength hits all too often. It was either bear form or die in a lot of situations. Now, let's talk about balance. So some of the balance Druid nodes are new or have been reworked. And we'll talk about the new stuff first, and then we'll talk about the other stuff. Stellar Amplification, your Star Surge increases the damage the target takes from periodic effects and shooting stars by 12% for 5 seconds. Reapplying this effect now extends its duration up to 20 seconds. This replaced the Stellar Innervation trait. Stellar Innervation was that cringe, Moonfire generates bonus astral power talent that we had. Pulsar's gone, which is crazy, and now it's got replaced by a talent called Greater Alignment, which is Incarnation, Chosen of Lumen, Celestial Alignment now lasts 40% longer. Inside Incarnation, Chosen of Lumen, in CA, Solar Eclipse now increases the nature damage done by an additional 5%, and Lunar Eclipse increases arcane damage by an additional 5%. And so CA and Incarn are now shorter duration. Celestial Alignment is now 15 seconds duration, and Incarnation is now a 20-second duration. And so, they're just not going to be as long. You're not going to be gated behind having super long cooldowns that you need to get full value out of. Now, they're still not very strong, just in general, as offensive CDs, but I don't know. Like, strong 3-minute cooldowns are always in a weird spot. Now this maybe puts you... I think that Greater Alignment is a better change from Pulsar, because balance was very difficult for Moonkin to just get away from Pulsar, generally speaking. And so now Orbital Strike and Greater Alignment being on a choice node with one another. This is probably going to be a numerical question, and I hope it actually ends up allowing Orbital Strike to get played a lot more. I think that a lot of people kind of share that sentiment where, a 2-minute cooldown on your Incarn with Orbital Strike. I think Orbital Strike is a really cool node, and so being able to play that is spectacular. Nature's Grace, next up, got reworked. And now it is the 2 set from the current tier, where when you enter combat or when eclipses end, you enter the dream state, reducing the cast time of your next 2 Starfires or Wraths by 40%. Awesome. This is a great talent. A lot of people love the QOL of this talent. Kind of like whenever Starlord was introduced as the 4 set during Tomb of Sargeras, and they pretty quickly converted that into a talent. Nature's Grace is being converted into a talent in the similar vein. I think that Blizzard did a really good job with the 2 set for this Amir Drasil tier. And so I think that, converting Nature's Grace into that just makes a lot of sense. It's better than what it was in the past, where it was very clunky. Umbral Embrace got reworked, where Wrath and Starfire now have a 20% chance to cause your next Wrath or Starfire cast during an eclipse to become astral, dealing 100% additional damage. Where this before was like dealing astral damage caused your next Wrath or Starfire cast to be astral. I mean, this is not like a full rework. I think it's just, a slight change to functionally how it works a little bit. Umbral Inspiration, first off, got a new icon. Now it's a bird icon, and you can see it here in the middle. And now it's consuming an Umbral Embrace, increase the damage of your Moonfire, Sunfire, and Stellar Flare and Shooting Stars and Starfall, basically all your abilities, by 20% for 5 seconds. So now there's a bit of a gameplay loop with how Umbral Embrace and Umbral Inspiration work. So it's definitely going to be something that needs to be tracked. This is a lot better than what Umbral Inspiration was in the past, and I think that this will be, a lot more interesting. I think between the 2 of these nodes is just like a gameplay loop, but it is a proc that you're going to have to track. I think that that's something that is probably notable. Communion, Astral Communion got reworked in a really, really good way. So now it increases your maximum astral power by 20, which is what it was before. And instead of being an on-use ability that gives you 75 astral power instantly, entering Eclipse will now grant you 12 astral power. And playing around with this, man, we are flush with AP. And I think a lot of it, I don't want to say a lot of it's because of this talent, but part of it's definitely because of this talent. Being able to generate a lot of astral power while you're entering Eclipses is sick. I think that this is a terrific talent. I hope that we're able to take it pretty much as often as possible. Harmony of the Heavens, which is now Star Surge or Starfall, will increase your current Eclipse's arcane or nature damage bonus by an additional 1% up to 5%. This is a new node. Basically, there was no node here in the past, and now they added, something that mirrored the previous Stellar Inspiration trait. Oh no, that's Touch of the Cosmos. Harmony of the Heavens is the node that replaced Denizens. Okay, so Denizens and Friends of the Fae. So Friends of the Fae is now gone, and Denizens got shifted down to be a capstone talent, and this is Harmony of the Heavens right here. I got Touch of the Cosmos and Harmony of the Heavens mixed up, but yeah, basically this is something that this is the 4 set from Amir Jasil, and this will be, I think a pretty interesting gameplay loop. I suspect that you're probably not going to track this, kind of similar to what you did with the Amir Jasil tier. Touch of the Cosmos is also casting Wrath in an Eclipse, has an 8% chance to make your next Star Surge free. I think that this will work pretty well with something like Starweaver. If you have a interesting gameplay loop between Touch of the Cosmos and Starweaver, that'd be cool. You also have casting Starfire in Eclipse, has a 10% chance to make your next Starfall free. Now, this will be really cool. I haven't played around with this too much on the alpha. I don't have a good UI to be able to track this. I think that this is another proc that we have to track. And so now we're actually getting a decent amount of procs with Touch of the Cosmos, with Harmony of the Heavens, with Umbral Embrace being potentially takeable again. There's a few more procs that you are going to need to play around more so than you would in the past. And now Orbital Strike and Greater Alignment and stuff like that. I think all in all, these are pretty sick changes. Additionally, moved talents, Lunar Shrapnel and Ethereal Killing swap positions again. I wonder if Shrapnel's kind of off the menu now because of this swapping. Ethereal Killing is obviously the superior talent in almost all aspects, and so by swapping these, maybe this is a situation where Shrapnel's dropped heavily, but that's going to end up being a tuning or numbers question that I don't have the answer to. Firmament is now a choice node with Orbit Breaker, which is so basically right here, after you get it Cosmic Rapidity, you get to pick between Orbit Breaker and Southern Firmament. Southern Firmament works really well with the Elun's Chosen hero talents, which we're going to talk about hero talents here in a second. Firmament works really well with the Elun's Chosen hero talent, kind of depending on what you're talented into. And I think that this is going to end up being more of a number question. I suspect that Firmament's probably going to end up being better on AoE, and Orbit Breaker slightly better on single target, but it might be a situation where Orbit Breaker's just better as a whole, or maybe Firmament's just better as a whole. Maybe neither of these talents are taken. Denizens has now been moved to row 10. Number tuning stuff, which I don't really want to cover the number tuning stuff. Boat, now has crit strike chance increased by a slightly less amount. Smolder now no longer procs from critical strikes, but has a flat 45% chance to trigger. That's a good change. Initial damage increased by 32% by Wild Mushroom. Periodic damage increased by 21.5%. Astral Power Generation has now been capped at 16 when it previously was 20. So now it's going to still hit all the targets, but it now can only generate up to 16 Astral Power. But then the rest of that's now, Waning Twilight's a 1-point node. AK, Ethereal Killing now extends duration by 3 seconds, was previously 4. A lot of these is just minor tuning stuff. Fury of Elune damage increased by 6%, but now Astral Power Generation reduced to 40. There's a lot more AP gen, though, with the Elun's Chosen. And so let's talk about hero talents a little bit. Having played around with the Elun's Chosen, I'm gonna keep it a buck. I didn't play with Keeper of the Grove. I think Keeper of the Grove is cringe, and so I didn't want to test it yet. But having played around with the Elun's Chosen, my God, we have so much Astral Power with this. I probably will, instead of just having me on the screen right now, I'm probably just going to show a little bit of gameplay here in a couple of seconds. But just going through the talents really quick, this is not stuff that we were super surprised to see, but I played a full Fury of Elune build with Lunation, and basically this is a situation where I can show you on screen right here. If you press Fury of Elune on a target, your Fury of Elune is immediately, instead of being on a 45-second cooldown, it's on a 43-second cooldown, because that counts as one of the astral abilities. And then on top of that, being able to Star Surge and Starfall also counts as a lot more astral abilities. And so Lunation just decreases the cooldown of Fury of Elune by such a fast margin, because your arcane abilities reduce the cooldown of Fury of Elune by 2 seconds. So you end up having Fury of Elune on especially if you're talented into Radiant Moonlight, you have it on a 25 or 30 second cooldown. On top of that, I was just playing this full Fury of Elune build where Moonfire will have a chance to call down a Fury of Elune. Enemies you know, and I thought that we just had so much astral power in general. Moonfire and Starfire now generate 2 additional astral power, and even with the nerfs to the AP gen, it was a lot, especially whenever we're playing things like Communion. And so having the 130 or 120 astral power pool was quite nice. For Keeper of the Grove, you know, I kind of covered it in a video. I think my sentiments kind of still ring true. I need to test it a bit more. I think is probably the short of it. I haven't tested it at all. I just don't like functionally the concept of playing around trees. I just don't think it's very cool. I don't love the theme of it. Force of Nature now granting 3 charges of Dream Burst, causing your next Wrath or Starfire to explode. Maybe it'll end up being OP, and I end up having to play it anyways. But I wasn't super in love with it, so I was kind of avoiding it. By and large, though, I think balance is pretty fast paced compared to how it has been in the past, especially with this talent overhaul. A lot of it's going to come down to numbers as to what is playable and what isn't. But just by reading the talents, it really feels like Blizzard has done a pretty good job with the rework, just on the whole. No solid complaints from me just with what they've changed. I think that, you know, Pulsar probably needed to go. I think that it was a gameplay experience that we had for a while with Pulsar, but it was such that I didn't think it was like super healthy for the game either. And so having a good UI, I think, for balance is going to be really, really important. The moment that I have the ability to be able to make like a strong UI with weak auras on the beta, I'm probably going to have to start being able to, you know, track a bunch more procs, be a bit more diligent with Umbral Embrace and Umbral Inspiration, be really diligent if we're playing Touch of the Cosmos, making sure that, you know, Stellar Amplification, are we tracking Stellar Amplification kind of similar in the same vein as how we're tracking Star-Lord? Also, like, what do my Fury of Elune look like? Are my Fury of Elune out from Elune's Chosen? Where are we getting the damage from with that? Also, like, Incarn cooldown. I think that the Incarn CD thing is probably the one that's still the most problematic. I don't know if Orbital Strike needs to have the 60-second, you know, Incarn cooldown modifier on top of it. I think that maybe should be baked into just Incarn baseline, and then you could just maybe beef up Orbital Strike as a solo talent. But I hope that Orbital Strike is being able to be played. I think that talent is super sick, and so I'm glad to kind of play it. And that's kind of all the thoughts that I necessarily had on like a first pass of being able to play the alpha for a couple of days. These are my generalized thoughts on balance. I suspect that I'm going to make something with community members in a couple of days after we have the ability to be able to, you know, test and show off a bit more of the gameplay, just of what balance looks like. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.